The reason why David thinks I'm so nervous, and it's not nervous. This day is always probably the most emotional day for me in terms of my relationship with the program, even more so than graduation, because this is the day when the people who have made a huge decision from a professional point of view, a personal point of view, and a financial, to actually absolutely turn your lives upside down, to basically say, I want to transform where I am in my career and be part of something else. And you are here with that expectation of delivery of something that's going to help that happen. And I do not take that lightly. And so this is why I am a little bit nervous. It has nothing to do with any news in the last couple of weeks or anything. It's really that there are more of you than ever, and you are here for a reason. And we take that responsibility very seriously. And I consider it that we are here to be stewards of your experience, to have a really excellent education here at the program. So I see your presence here as a vote of confidence in what we do, and we want to make sure that we deliver on that. So I'm going to take no more than 10 slides, and you can see it up here. Just to, David gave you sort of the backstory in terms of how we got here and why we're here. I want to give you an even higher level view of where we're headed and why we're headed in that direction. And this gets into the substance of the material that we study in this program, and this will help launch us into the class as well. So, and that's the wrong way for the Prezi. Okay, so in 2007 I came into the program. Had been around for 6 years and doing very well, but a relatively small program with 20 to 25 students coming in. This is one of the original websites that we had, which suited the time. And I actually remember attending my first orientation 5 years ago and looking at people who were in your places, but we were in a small room on the floor, the second floor of the Department of Communication for 2 hours. We had Chinese food, we had a really nice, intimate conversation, and we talked about the program, and that was it. And it was great, and it really worked well for that setting. But you know, that was 5 years ago. And now, as you know, we've got a day and a half of orientation, and we're really trying to prepare you and set you up for something really fantastic. And that's just a sense of how much things have grown. But when I looked around the room then, as I just did now, in terms of the people who were in that room, those 20 to, I think there were about 24 students at the time, I didn't see them as students looking to be, as empty vessels, waiting to be filled with the wisdom from on high, as maybe the Ivory Tower is seen. I saw them, as colleagues, that if we were not in this university, I would be working shoulder to shoulder with them in some professional undertaking. And as colleagues and as professionals, I had to respect their experience and what they brought to the table and their expertise, and that together we would figure out this really tumultuous subject matter together. So that was sort of the premise that we took as we moved forward in 2007, that we had to move forward in this collaborative approach to the program. And back then, as David mentioned, I mean, this program sort of resided in the corner of the second floor of the Department of Communication. The department didn't really care about it that much, or didn't really look at it really closely, and the university barely knew that it existed. And I'll just cut to the chase, because you know what happened afterwards, and this is what our current website looks like, and it really reflects all the properties that we have built together. That now the University of Washington says that as the business model for higher education continues to evolve and be disrupted, that mid-career professional education is actually a core function of the university. And they say that the MCDM, as we've built it together, is a model for that. And so we have now sort of risen to the forefront of the University of Washington and seen around the world as a model for ways to really engage professionals, to engage in this lifelong learning, that you don't stop when you get your undergrad. And so that's a really amazing accomplishment that we did together. So having this attitude that you're not empty vessels to be taught to, but learners to collaborate with. And that's indeed what's been happening across society over the last 5 or 6 years with the amazing disruption we've seen. So I wanted to show you a little bit. David really hit it really well, but I want to give you a better sense of how we've grown and what's changed since 2007 to the program. So you've heard a little bit about the numbers, that we tripled the size of the student cohort and the number of electives. This is really important, the second point. We wanted to make sure that if you were coming in and making such a huge investment in this program, that you got a common, universally excellent learning experience. So we brought Lisa Kuchu, where's Lisa? There she is there, who's now a member of our leadership team, to essentially get all of our staff, our faculty, up to a common level of instruction and how they worked in the classroom. So every one of our faculty has to go through that now, including me, just to make sure you guys get exactly what you're supposed to get and what you need for your learning experience. We've also made sure that even as we've grown, you would think, wow, that you've gone from this intimate program to this really unruly large thing. And in fact, it's actually become more intimate, that we think that community building is really crucial. So each one of you gets a chance to meet with us through the first quarter. And plus, you get to interact with me and Mac and Shay in that first class. And we take that first time really seriously. That this way, we get to know who you are. We want to know what your objectives are. We want to know how we can help shepherd you through the entire degree program and even stay connected to you after the program ends. And if you're looking for jobs, we try to connect you to our networks as well. So this is our chance to really get to know you. So those consultations really matter. We didn't have this before. In 2007, we had no formal career counseling. Is Angie here today? She's here tomorrow, right? She's coming today. So we've hired a career counselor who's actually a recruiter specifically in communication. So she knows where you guys come from. She knows where you want to go. She provides quarterly workshops on how what you need to do to get your career in order, and then when you start interviewing for jobs, she can advise you on that as well. So that's really fundamental because we know why you're here. You're here to make a personal transformational change. We created the Flip the Media blog, which is now a really trusted, impressive channel, and we'll have the editors here to talk about that, and you can get involved with that. We really make sure that we listen to you, and that's through this enhanced orientation that you've seen. We have regular town hall meetings, and we have a screen summit, which is sort of if we start strong, we want to end strong as well. So we showcase students who are graduating and the excellent work they've done. This didn't exist either 5 years ago. We have a scholarship fund that we're still growing. It's still relatively small compared to other educational programs, but we want to support our students. And you probably received emails, or you will receive emails about this, and it's in the student handbook, that in addition to if you're in a situation where you need some help in a particular class financially, you can apply to that. But as important, in addition to paying for your tuition, there are so many amazing things happening in this world that we study around the country and around the world. And if our students want to say, you know what, South by Southwest Interactive, I think we should go there and cover it for Flip the Media, and will you help support us? Well, we had, I can't remember how many students went. 6 students? 5 students went this year to South by Southwest, and we funded them to do that. So we want to make sure we put aside a certain amount of funds for professional development for you to actually do that. And you are pointing to Conrado because Conrado went. And Conrado, did you enjoy going to South by Southwest despite the rain? I stepped foot into that RV, and I stepped foot right back out of that RV.
Well, yes, it was fantastic.
And these are all sort of uniformly equally important, but we knew that we had to do 2 things when we really started growing the program. We wanted to improve the educational experience, so training faculty, making sure the classes were right for you. And secondly, we wanted to make sure the community understood how important and how great this program was. So we created this amazing high-profile approach through our community scholarship, partnering with organizations and companies that want to work with our students, through our advisory board, which are some of the most influential people in the world in this. We did TEDx Seattle a couple of years ago, and we have a television show and this sort of this engagement network that we're building through Four Peaks. So this is everything we've done in the last 5 years to make sure that we're not just another graduate program that hangs out brochures and tries to get people to pay their money so they can get their next step up. We want to make sure that we bring you along all the way, and that you have access to all this and you benefit from all this. So at the same time, let's see where I'm going with this. Okay, we'll get back to that in a second. At the same time we were doing all this, 5 years ago, it was truly the Wild West of communication and digital media. It was kind of like throw it at the wall and see if it sticks. And that was fun for us because our students were coming in and having raging debates with me about, you know, this Facebook thing is crap. No, nobody's ever going to do that because, you know, who wants to talk about what they had for breakfast? Now, we still have those debates and conversations. But that is actually going away. And I think the seismic shift in that was in 2008 when Barack Obama won the presidency, because people all of a sudden said, hey, he used social media to fund some of that. We got to take this seriously. And so there was all of a sudden an institutional awakening, especially among companies that said, you know what, even if we don't quite get the ROI of all this is going on, we got to be there. And so in the last 3 years, it's just exploded. And where we thought we were the leaders in moving us ahead, we've actually had to pay really close attention to how professionals are using this out there, because they are experimenting with the resources at the same time. And what's happening as well is that as everybody sort of comes onto this and recognizes that there is so much opportunity to communicate, that it's ironically become more challenging to communicate. This is the situation. I'll give you the statistic. It's quite mind-boggling. It came out this year. The senior VP of supercomputing at IBM, he said that it was in the Harvard Business Review, until 2003, humanity produced 5 exabytes of data and information. As a collective, that's how much we put out. That's 5 billion gigabytes, by the way. As of this year, we do that every 2 weeks. And as of next year, when you guys will be full speed ahead in this program, every 10 minutes. So can you imagine all that content, all that information, all that data getting out there, and you as professionals need to go swimming into that massive, vast ocean and be heard and influence and persuade. And so it's an amazing challenge that didn't exist even a few years ago. And with all these smart devices that we have, I mean, the laptop, the tablet, and the smartphone, yes, we all see that now, but that's just the beginning. Wait till those sensors go into our fridges, into our shoes, into our cars, and they're all feeding back into our toothbrushes. And we have access to all that data, and what do we do with that data? And that's why bringing Katie Pierce into this program is so fundamental. And the research class you'll take with her in the winter, you'll start understanding what big data means and how to deal with it, and what research means as well. Here's Adam Brotman is the Chief Digital Officer of Starbucks, and he's on our advisory board, and he is quite a leader. He was actually ranked #2 by Fast Company magazine a few months ago as one of the most influential leaders in business. And on his blog, he pointed out that it's titled 4 Years is a Lifetime. This is what Adam wrote. At this time in 2008, Twitter had 3 million users, and today it's approaching 200 million. Facebook had 100 million users in August of 2008, and today it's about to cross 1 billion users. Smartphone adoption in the US was at 12% in the third quarter of 2008, and it's now approaching 60%, on its way to 100%. Who here has a smartphone in their pockets? It wasn't obligatory, but it's clear that it's getting that way. And at this time in 2008, Square, Instagram, and Pinterest didn't even exist. This rapid pace of adoption, change, and innovation not only continues, but it's accelerating. So this is what I've seen, and in the conversations I've had with leaders, and there's one of them right now, Brian Marr, looking for a chair. I'm calling you out, Brian. You know what we've seen? You can talk about the internet, you can talk about digital, but at its heart, communication. This is the Master of Communication Digital Media, the Department of Communication. He's the chair of communication. It's communication that has elevated itself to a place of prominence in leadership. That a few years ago, a CEO of any organization had to be well-versed in finance to be able to lead that organization. Now, because of all these technologies and that pervasiveness of connectivity, they've got to know communication just as well. And so to lead, you need to know how to communicate and understand all these platforms. And that's a huge change. And we're just at the beginning of that. So this importance and this pervasiveness is happening, that communication is rising. And communication includes digital, but it's not always digital. But digital is actually being the catalyst behind all of this. So we need to recognize that. So this is why we wanted to sort of create this umbrella approach that this is the master. We have a Master of Communication Digital Media, Master of Communication in Strategic Engagement. Thank you. Somebody's getting the program already. But regardless of how much we talk about this big picture and the systemic change, we also recognize that digital is so fundamental to all this. So this is why we're doubling down our investment in digital. You saw my first 2 emails over the last few weeks, that we really believe that, you know, we have just skirted the surface of what we needed to do for digital in this program. And I think we provided what we needed at the level that we could over the last 5 years, but we need to do more. That even as this elevates to the top, that I'm hearing from leaders that students and people that they hire need to know more about coding. They need to know more about production. Even though we're a graduate program that doesn't necessarily has never really taught those skills at that level. And so we want to make that opportunity available to you, and that's why we're introducing the production studio curriculum this year, and we'll continue to make that investment. So even as we get broader, we go deeper into digital, and this is our investment that we need to make. So ultimately, communication has reached prime time, as you see, and we need to double down on digital. So this is why we've made this investment. This is why we're looking at this. Now, I pointed out Brian Marr. Brian, where'd you sit there? There's Brian. Now, Brian he teaches our marketing class. Brian, for the longest time, was at Wexley School for Girls, which is actually a marketing agency. Can you imagine that? And Brian just took a job at Smashing Ideas, which for about 15 years was essentially a company that created flash games for kids. And I'm not giving any state secrets here, am I, so far? Okay. So Smashing Ideas hired Brian because they knew that they were actually living on borrowed time. And they said, we need to make a transition to something bigger and broader. And so would you like to come in and help us make that transition? And Brian said, sure. And they said, we think that you should be, the title you get is digital strategist. And Brian just told me this yesterday at our faculty retreat, and I was quite astounded by this. And Brian said, digital strategist, digital is all around us. Why do we have to call it out? So Brian actually lopped off the digital, and you are strategist. And Brian, can you just quickly speak to what your responsibilities are now within Smashing Ideas?
Yeah, the strategy and direction of the company. So we're doing a fairly seismic shift in what we were doing before and what we will be doing in the future. And then also doing that with our clients, because it's no longer about an app or a website or a content management system, which we are developing sort of separately. It's how all these things work together within the context of the person who's using them. So we're now becoming a sort of an integral part of the businesses that we're working with, rather than just creating a small piece, a small product. So that strategic piece now is connected not only to how does this play into digital, but then how does it work with the rest of the business that we're working on for our clients.
Great, thanks for sharing that. I'm almost done, I promise. I know it's hard to see here no matter how loud I speak. I'm always nervous, by the way. I've been nervous from the time that I started my position here, because I feel like this stuff moves so fast, and it's our responsibility to stay on top of it so you guys can have the best education possible. And so even as I speak to all of our advisors and leaders out there who say we totally support this maturation of the program fundamentally, you have to do this. I understand that it's also a little uncomfortable. It's everything we've done has been uncomfortable for me, because it's always sort of saying you've got to shift out of your comfort zone. You've got to constantly disrupt yourself if you're going to stay relevant to yourself and to your constituents. And so I want to give that exhortation to you as well. That's why you're here. You're here to personally disrupt yourselves. In the Harvard Business Review just recently, there was a really interesting article, and I can put this on Twitter and share it with you. It's called "Throw Your Life a Curve," and it came out earlier this month. And I found it really interesting that essentially, and this is why I continue to reinvent myself, is that as we come into a new challenge, the first while, and I think you might have heard of Malcolm Gladwell saying it takes 10,000 hours to become a master at anything, that in the first time, it's really hard, we can't get anything right, and so there's this really steep learning curve. But then suddenly, it starts to click. We get better at it, and it starts to feel good. And we say, wow, this is almost like a sense of euphoria that I'm experiencing, that I am actually mastering something that is so hard for everybody else and was once so hard for me. And then eventually you flatline. It's like, okay, I'm really good at this. I can do it in my sleep. I get to go and have a 40-hour week and spend time with my family. But the problem is, especially in this very fast-paced world, is that as we flatline, some of us begin to crave returning back to that euphoria when we actually mastered it. And that's probably what a lot of you have faced. Now, you guys are probably really good at what you've done. I mean, we wouldn't have let you into this program if you weren't really good at what you did. You could have just stayed where you were, but you want to disrupt yourselves. And this is what you're doing, is that you want that euphoria of learning again, of learning to master something else. And I want to just read a quick passage of this, and then I'm almost done, because I think it's really, really interesting. And they actually quote a golf player, a guy who never played golf, and he basically said, I want to be a professional golfer. So he did his 10,000-hour thing, and he went through that graph, and now he's a professional golfer, which I find amazing. So you guys can all be professional golfers. No. As our learning crests, should we fail to jump to new curves, we may actually precipitate our own decline. That doesn't necessarily mean a financial downfall, but our emotional and social well-being will take a hit. This is Saul Kaplan from the Chief Catalyst at Business Innovation Factory, which Anita is going to be doing a stint at next week. My life has been about searching for the steep learning curve because that's where I do my best work. When I do my best work, money and stature have always followed. Or, paraphrasing James Allworth, Steve Jobs solved the innovator's dilemma because his focus was never on profit, but at better and better products. Forget the plateau profits, seek and scale a learning curve. And so that's my request to all of you, that this is your chance to do that. And you will all benefit if you take that attitude, as you take ownership of this program, of your education, and work with us to disrupt yourselves and the world around us. So one piece of business before I surrender the floor to you. In the last few years, each cohort has decided that they are really good at sort of summing up what they represent. And you don't know each other yet, but you will soon. And so each cohort has had a tagline. The last couple of years, there's been Go Epic or Go Home, and then Goes to 11, and that refers to Spinal Tap and some ridiculous scene from that really awful movie from the early 80s. For those who like heavy metal, I know some of you here like heavy metal. So I want to put it to you to think of one, but in the meantime, I want to make a suggestion. You could totally discard it. That it's quite possible that what we're doing here is that we built a magnificent house with the MCDM that you are joining, but we need more room because, as I've showed you, there's been a fundamental shift in how much people want to understand this world because of communication at its heart. So I think we need more space in this house that we built, and we want you to help build it. So I propose raise the roof. Now, I was searching around on the internet today about what raise the roof is, and there was like this street language Wikipedia thing. It sort of said, it's about this really bad dance where you do this. So it's for hipster doofuses. So this may not be something you want to adopt, but I just wanted to sort of, you could start using it if you don't like it. You know, Twitter is free and democratic for now until they give your information away to some government. Please sort of talk amongst yourselves and see if there's something that fits what you're trying to accomplish as a cohort in a collaborative way over the next few years during your time here. So thank you very much for listening to both David and I, and Anita for your fabulous introduction. I can't remember what's next on the agenda, but I just want to see, I'll take a few quick questions. We'll have a lot of time to talk about all of this over the next few days at the reception tomorrow. Plus, we're going to have a town hall meeting really soon to talk more about how the degree will change, not change, but will evolve and bring more options to you. But in terms of your experience, you're getting an amazing MCDM, and there'll be more classes waiting for you come summer and fall of next year.